Hi guys! Well, I'm doing another Q&A since last week's was so informative and I got a lot of feedback on it. People really enjoyed it. So I think I'm gonna, keep rotating through different topics that are connected to the work I do. And we'll just start making this like a little Friday lunchtime tea break tradition maybe. Hi Michelle, good to see you. So I'm going to talk today about being a priestess. Oh, Erin's there too, great. Hello Erin. Awesome. Hello Tracy, it's good to see you too. Yay, everyone come to my circle, get some tea. Good morning Jennifer. I hope you got your reading, I sent it out. I love what I do. I hope y'all are having a good day. The energy's been a little bit of a roller coaster as it tends to be. So I hope you're able to do something really just nice and comforting for yourself today. And maybe it'll be this in our discussion. So a lot of the work I do could fall under the umbrella term of priestess work. And what does that You made it! Good job! I'm so glad. Welcome! And people will keep joining, and if you have to go, you have to go. This is super casual. It'll still be here on Facebook even after the live session ends, and I'll upload it to my YouTube channel as well. So if you watch this and there's a friend that you think could benefit from something we talk about today, feel free to share that with them, even if they're not on Facebook. That's why I'm trying to move things off of Facebook to YouTube, because I think a lot of people, for their own mental health, don't want to be here on Facebook, which I get. I like Facebook, but I also have to keep some good boundaries with it. So I like things to be accessible outside of this little pocket of the world. And if you have questions as we're talking, feel free to type them in. Sometimes I'm on a little bit of a delay, so I might not get to your question right away, but I'll circle back to them as best I can. And if you still have burning questions that I don't get to talk about today, just message them to me. I'm available outside of here, so yay. So priestess, okay, that's a term that I kind of resisted for a while. Because for me, I was just more familiar with the term priest, and for me, priest is just strictly associated with religion, and I'm not religious. I can see the role of religion in people's lives. I'm just not a fan of organized religion. And so when I say priestess, it doesn't mean for me that it's in a specific religious tradition. There are priestesses. There's pagan priestesses, Wiccan priestesses. There are faiths around the world that have a more organized religious structure and use the term priestess to mean someone that has been through specific initiations, rituals, and training in order to become a priestess. For me, it's a little bit different. For me, the term is someone like myself who is engaged in work of a primarily spiritual nature. And I'm someone who is a resource in my community for things like healing work, spiritual counsel, helping and supporting those who are grieving or moving through significant transformations in their life. I offer healing work, healing modalities, and divination. So for me, that's not fortune telling or predicting the future. I do believe we create our own future. But the term priestess to me is someone that is a leader and resource in their community in spiritual, holistic, earth-based, and heart-centered or energetic practices, and utilizes and connects people and teaches people and empowers people within her community to access those resources for themselves. So when I say priestess, it is not a religious term for me. It is a term to denote that I do spiritual work, and I have trained for many, many years and have gotten a significant enough background in this work to be comfortable taking a more leadership and authoritative role. I do develop and utilize ritual in a lot of the work I do. And again, this is not religious-based ritual, although it is spiritual. That means that I'm working with energy, with intention, sometimes with specific guides, beings, deities, but outside of a traditional religious context. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And so for me, when I became a priestess, it wasn't another person that made me one. People had called me that or referred to me as that off and on, and I'd been a little bit resistant to that term, because I thought, like, I'm not a priestess unless someone else initiates me or makes me one. My initiation, and I don't believe you even have to be initiated per se, but my initiation came directly from Spirit. After having already done this work for a number of years, in my private spiritual practice and in my daily meditation, I was receiving guidance and instruction to start applying that term to myself and to walk myself through my own private ritual, to take on, to claim that role and that title. And so it was not given to me by another person. It is something that came from my direct and unique relationship with Spirit, with the guides I work with the beings that come through and show up for me. And I was guided through a ritual on my own to initiate myself into priestesshood. So I don't always introduce myself that way. Sometimes I say I'm just a professional witch. Sometimes I'm a social worker, because the work I do is social work, and I have a master's in social work, which is really helpful for doing priestess work. I'm also ordained through the American Fellowship Church, which is like an online ordination. And they ask for some credentials. It's not just, there's Universal Life Church, which I'm also ordained through, which is literally just become a minister or reverend or whatever title you choose. You can choose priestess, so that you can officiate weddings and things. American Fellowship Church does look at, like, are you doing spiritual counseling work or guidance? And so for me, I've been ordained for a long time because I got attuned to Reiki when I was 19, and in order to practice Reiki legally and like offer it professionally, you have to be an ordained minister in the state of Georgia. And so when I completed that ordination through the American Fellowship Church, it asked me what title I wanted. And I remember, this was years ago, this was before I had initiated myself into priestesshood. I saw the term priestess as an option, and something inside me was like, yup, that's your title. Check that box. And I didn't. I checked reverend because that sounded more comfortable for me. I was raised Christian. I don't identify as Christian, but I was raised Christian, and that was how my Reiki master did it. And it just I felt like, who am I to call myself a priestess? Like, I'm not going to do that. And so I didn't. And yet that term stuck with me, and it stuck with me through the years. And as I worked more with tarot, we all know the High Priestess card. This card is my card. Numerologically, it's the card that always comes up for me. It's kind of become a sign for me over the years of when this card comes up. You can see it across different decks. The High Priestess tends to be something magical, connected with working with different energies. This is a non-gendered term, the diviner for High Priestess, in one of the decks I have. But you can see different examples of, it's usually there's some darkness in the card, right? As I engage with the priestess title through working with tarot over the years, and really let my work unfold in the ways it is and does, I realized that all the work I do is priestess work. And that was actually the most succinct way to describe myself and the work I do, especially given the role of emphasis, the emphasis on ritual in my work, and helping people feel empowered to create rituals for themselves. Jamie has a question. Wait, hold up. How is your journey to this as your profession rather than as a personal practice? That is an excellent question. So because my personal practice was evolving at the same time my professional work was evolving. I started doing this work just to practice Reiki. Even though I was offering card readings as well in my Reiki sessions, I only listed myself as a holistic energy practitioner or Reiki practitioner, because some people don't know the term Reiki. So I chose holistic energy practitioner. And the only service people could book with me was Reiki. For about the first 2 years I was doing this professionally. It's a term that I came into personally and professionally kind of at the same time, which might not be the norm, but I bring so much of myself into my work, and realizing and recognizing that the work I do professionally all falls under the umbrella of what I consider a priestess to be. That I am a priestess for myself in my own spiritual practice, but also I have a role in my community to work with people in a very intimate spiritual way, to help shepherd them along their journey, to perform rituals that they would like perform, to hold sacred space, to be a channel for spirit. And I do that. I officiate weddings. I do blessing ways. I have attended and sat with people as they have been transitioning out of this life. I work with the bereaved. I work with people in all different stages of life moving through loss, and claiming and stepping into their power and moving through births as well. And so I realize that all of the work I do really is what I would consider priestess work to be. Aaron says, I love the term priestess. It feels like it's been relegated to antiquity for too long. Yes, I'm glad you feel comfortable now calling yourself priestess for modernity's sake. Yes, thank you. And I wanted to talk about spiritual work in the modern world because it's a struggle. It's a struggle if I think about ancient priestesses and connecting with them as well. This book, Lifting the Veil, is great. So, and I will say, a lot of the clients I work with are priestesses in their own right. And part of my role is to help them step into that as well. And so I have quite the library of resources. But this Lifting the Veil takes a much more, it's very Wiccan based, but it also includes some stories of priestesses across the ages, because this is the thing, as priestess in the modern world, it's starting to come back into existence, right? But for a long time, the religions and spiritual practices that dominated our culture were very patriarchal and really only acknowledged masculine deities, masculine energy overall. And yet, if we look back to ancient cultures, there were priestesses, ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, in Egypt, all over, Sumeria, Mesopotamia. It was a priestess culture, and the priestesses were supported by the community, right? And that's the tricky thing nowadays, because I am not affiliated with a religion. I don't have a religious home. I don't have a church that supports me or a temple. I don't have, I have to be professional and be a priestess. And so my energy, a part of it has to go into navigating how to run a business in something I don't even want to charge money for. But I have to, because it's the only way I'm going to be supported. Not the only way, I mean, obviously, and y'all know me, I barter, I do sliding scale. We have our membership program now at Seed to Star. I love having a work partner that understands and agrees and really is all about the accessibility of this work. But what's happened is, as a lot of people nowadays are seeking meaning and they're wanting some type of spiritual life, and they're not called to any of the organized religions, it's sort of like, where do you go? And so I end up, I have my meditation groups that meet. I have the events and workshops at Seed to Star. I have my one-on-one work with clients. A lot of the work I do with the other emerging priestesses is very much individual and one-on-one, and it's done in a session, and they pay me a set fee for that session. But my dream, and this is part of where I was going, in my vision for the work I'm doing, is that we will bring back priestesses and recognize them, and the community will support them more collectively. And I am blessed. I feel very supported for my by my community. It's really amazing, but it's not traditionally acknowledged in the way that, like, a priest with a church is provided a place to live, is provided an income, is provided the resources they need to support their life and their family, and is able to devote, instead of trying to raise that money all the time, like every month I have to like make sure I make enough money to pay my bills. And for me, I really just kind of leave it up to Spirit, and my parents help us out, and Mark's parents help us out, and some months are easier than others, but especially when Mark got really sick and almost died and couldn't work, I was like, oh, I might have to go get like a job. And the community swooped in and supported us, and I didn't have to do that. And there are still months when I'm like, what am I doing? But every time I've tried to get a job doing different work than this, and I can get hired, like, it's not that issue. It's like, it doesn't work out. The universe pulls me back. People in the community pull me back into this work, or invite me back in. I have a choice. I do have a choice. But the universe, the powers that be, my own higher self, whatever it is, has made it abundantly clear that this work is a calling. It is a calling for me. I'm called to this. I didn't want this. I didn't choose this. I love what I do, but it's hard to do this work in this world, in the structure society has, because I have to support myself and my family, and I don't want to charge money for the work I do, because I want it to be anyone in the community at any time can call on me. And it can't just be me. I need a group, because I can't meet all of the needs. I get messages in the middle of the night sometimes from people that need support, that are in crisis, that are having paranormal experiences, or sometimes it's a very real crisis of like, hey, my dad just had a stroke. You become, when you are a priestess, you become someone that your community relies on. And it is a calling, and I don't want to turn people away. I have very strong boundaries, though, and I have to maintain those boundaries. So that's part of the good, the bad, the ugly, the weird that I wanted to talk about. Like, this work is so joyful. It's so different. It's different every day. Some days I'm doing a Reiki session with someone, and their deceased grandmother comes through for some healing, for reestablishing a relationship, for validating that they're still there. Other days I'm teaching people how to use tarot cards or astrology so that they can have tools for doing a deeper introspection and understanding of their own lives. Other days I'm creating a ritual to document someone moving into a new chapter of their lives, or to bless a baby that's just been born. I'm helping people feel comfortable bringing ritual back into their own lives and reframing what that even means. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Your ritual can be something as simple as every morning I sit on my porch and have a cup of tea. And I'm there and I'm present. And as I drink the tea, I'm thinking about nourishing myself. As I exhale, I'm thinking about my connection to the world around me. That's it. You don't have to do elaborate rituals. Now, if you want to do elaborate rituals, I gotcha. Because I do have a cauldron, and I have weird herbs all up in my space, and I have stones and tinctures and all kinds of stuff. So I totally witch it up. But priestesses don't have to be witchy. I'm just witchy, so I'm a witchy priestess. But for me, a priestess is anyone who's serving their community. through a very people-oriented and including the spiritual and energetic dimension, helping people connect with that and offering a space that feels sacred and helping them cultivate that in their own lives. Tracy has a question. How long did it take you to learn to walk in spirit and human? And how do you balance this on a daily basis? That's a good question, Tracy. I'm still learning. I am learning that every day. And some days I'm a little closer to it than others. My connection with spirit is so strong at this point because I started connecting when I was really young. I mean, I came in a little different. And I had my first invisible friend, I will call him, not imaginary. I did not make him up. My first invisible friend when I was 4, named Echo. And I would see everything as particles of energy. Like, I didn't like to sleep with a nightlight because I liked seeing the particles of energy. So I've always had a connection with spirit. And I've always been very, very human. And I get upset and I have very human experiences and emotions, and I make mistakes and I get mad and angry and all kinds of stuff. I also experience all the great joys of being human. Like, I get a body, I get to eat chocolate, I get to make love, I get to do incredible things being a human in this human body, right? That I love. I get to dress it up, change my hair, put on some lipstick. Like, it's fun and it's hard. And I think it helps that I literally do this for a living. There's something about when you are in a role to teach others, it forces you to learn it better for yourself, right? And so in being a role model and a guide for others, it calls on me to step it up in my own life and to own my humanity and to be forgiving and compassionate with myself and to embrace it, because I am here to have a human experience. We all are. What are we doing with it? I don't want to just be in spirit right now. You know, like, I want to see what I can do here and what we can do together and what can be collective. And it's hard. It's hard. Being a very spiritually open and connected human means I'm highly sensitive. So I don't go to the grocery store very much. I was in the car with my partner the other day and we were going to go to the grocery store, and the door started to go up and I was like, I can't today. Actually, I can't be around a lot of people. So I might seem like I have it all together and I'm a very high functioning human. And in a lot of ways I am, but in a lot of ways I'm not. I literally have structured my entire life differently than most humans because I have to get my own needs met for rest, for nourishment, in order to maintain the spiritual connection and openness and awareness of energies that I have. And in order to really be my best when I am being very present and holding space for and with others. I can't do this work if I don't make taking care of myself the priority. And so I've had to really be thoughtful and mindful about my life and how it's designed and how much I can do in a day. And the fact that smells overwhelm me, loud noises can be too much. I have to give myself a good bit of downtime, because I'm also I'm an ambivert. When I am on. You will think I am the biggest extrovert in the world, but I'm not. I'm actually very much someone that needs just as much alone time as I need time with others. So I have to make sure I get that. I have to stay nourished. I always tell my clients this. It's like, and I'm sure I've told you this, because I tell everyone, it's like you have to see yourself. If you're someone that's wanting to be very spiritually aware, connected, and open, or energetically aware and connected and open, you have to treat yourself as though you were like an Olympic athlete, rather than someone that just jogs around their neighborhood 3 times a week. That requires a certain amount of nourishment. It requires a certain amount of resources and support in order to walk through life that way. So you gotta really take care of you. You have to learn your boundaries and honor them. You have to get proper nourishment, enough rest. You need play, you need downtime, you need time to chill, you need social support, you need resources, you need energetic support. It's a full-time job being a priestess or just someone who's very spiritually open and connected. Jamie, for context, how does being a priestess impact your parenting in good and or challenging ways? Oh, I love this question. Thank you. For context, I'm thinking about dividing your energy between being a priestess and a mom. Yes. Yeah, so I'm a mom. I have a 7-year-old, and it's interesting because he's really at the age where he's asking me, like, what do you do? And I know the kids at school are, like, talking about, my mommy does this, my daddy does this. Like, and he's like, Mommy, what is your work again? He's like, and sometimes he'll tell people that I read tarot cards. Sometimes he'll tell people I do astrology. Sometimes he tells people I do Reiki. He knows that my job has certain requirements that mean I'm not always available for him. And as he gets older, we talk about the different types of work I do and the different ways in which I work. And that sometimes I'm not going to be available. Sometimes I'm going to need to attend to someone in my community that needs my support. And showing him that, my job is really different. And I even had a conversation with him the other day about how you can tell people I'm a social worker because that's a word a lot of people know. You can tell them I'm a witch or I'm a priestess, but not as many people know those terms or understand them in the way I intend them. And so it might be easier to talk about the work I do in different ways. So Mommy doesn't have a normal job. He knows that. He knows that I don't have a normal job. And he comes, I bring him. He sees the work I do because I do it at home too. And I bring him to Seed to Star. And he's experienced it. And he's watched me with other people as well. And I think over time he'll understand it more. But I also compare it to like someone who's a nurse or a doctor, or someone who is a counselor or a therapist, someone who drives an ambulance. And we talk about different jobs that he might be more familiar with in a way to see the parallels between what that person does and the way it shows up for me in my work. And he knows that my work requires me to rest a good bit. And there's times he'll be like, I don't like your job, Mommy. Why do you have to do that? But then he'll come back around and be like, I'm really glad you're helping people. Or I really like that, we get to play with the stones and the cards. And yeah. It's hard though. But I think it's hard with any job. I don't think it's just this job. I think there's so many jobs that require so much of us and that don't fall into normal hours, that as much as I can, I just connect him to why I do what I do and the impact it has. Yeah. Great question though. Thank you. There are definitely downsides to this, and it's hard. It's hard on my family a lot of the time. It's hard on our budget. It's hard on our schedules. There's times like I do set aside time for family time and for us to go out and do something, and the week's just been extra intense, and I'm like, I really just need to stay home today. Or I just have to be in nature, but I need to be by myself. So who knows if I'm getting it right? I guess we'll find out. I do the best I can. And a lot of the work I do, it's very much in surrender. It's in surrender to spirit, and I trust. And I've made negotiations with my team. I'm always like, set your terms and conditions with spirit. I have to have time to be a human, be a mom, be a partner. I need time with my kid. And I set aside Jonah Mommy days and hours, specific hours. And he knows when those are. And that's really helped. The more consistent I keep my schedule, the more my child feels supported and like, okay, I know that like you're not going to be home for bedtime these 3 nights, but like on Thursday you're gonna pick me up from school and we have Jonah mommy time, and on Saturday we're gonna have this time together. And so he knows that when I'm with him, I'm with him, and we have dedicated time that I protect and preserve that's just for us. So that has helped a lot, and really honoring that. And it's still hard. Like, there's still times he's like, I wish you didn't do this work. But he also just doesn't really know what it's like to have anything different, because this is just how I've been. I haven't really worked a very normal job. I did some social work consultancy for United Way for a while there, but I was still doing this work too. So I never have like not done priestess work, even when I wasn't calling myself a priestess yet. I've never, since he's known me, I've never not been in a priestess role. So he's also doesn't know different. What else did I want to talk about? The weird, the good, the bad, the ugly, the weird. This work is weird, right? Like, every day is different. Some days I'm like out in land in other parts of the world, and I have to like leave offerings there, and I need to put my hands on the ground and like breathe and like sing. Sometimes my clients are not people. Sometimes it's energies. Sometimes it's the land itself. So being a priestess, like, I know people that identify as priestesses, or that at least I would identify as a priestess, that don't work with people at all. You don't have to work with people to be a priestess. Some people just work with animals. Some work with trees. Some work with specific energetic beings or grids or whatever. Some work with stones. There's different types of priestesses, and there's different paths to this. And they do have women's circles that are led by initiated priestesses, and there are covens, and there's 1,000 different types of priestess and priestesses, and the way that everyone has a relationship to that word in their own way. Anyone who calls himself a priestess, I would ask them what that word means to them, because it's not as structured as like if you hear someone's a priest. You kind of have a good sense of like, okay, you went to like school for this, like you got like a degree in divinity, theology, something like that. You've been initiated through some sacred rites and rituals, things like that. Hello, Rod. It's good to see you. And one thing that's helped me as a priestess is connecting with other spiritual facilitators and leaders. It helped me see myself as one more, and it also helped me realize the unique role that I do, or the ways I can meet people's needs in broader ways. I think sometimes I was limiting what I would allow myself to do, again, because I didn't pass through, there was no like priestess curriculum at my college, right? I have a bachelor's in international relations and a master's in social work, and they both come in handy. I've trained for years in meditation. I've taken Buddhist philosophy. I've studied world religions. Was raised Christian for many years. I have participated in religious ceremonies and traditions all around the world. And so as I gave myself greater license to share what I've learned and experienced, when that felt guided, when that felt right for the people I was working with, it's been a very slowly building, growing profession of mine, calling me. It's all integrated. And so it's interesting to see how it keeps evolving. But giving myself the permission to use the title and have that as an identification for me, a way I see myself and a way I move about the world, has been pretty significant. I don't have a uniform, right? There are things that could help this be seen as more of a traditional profession, but I'm not interested in having a uniform, right? That's not something I feel called to. I feel called to show up very present in me. And so for me to be a priestess, it's like, these are my priestess clothes, but also like I have like a fancy skirt I can wear and dress it up, and I can wear like a cape, and I can have a wand, and I can look more like a priestess or a witch, but I don't have to. It doesn't change who I am or the work I'm doing. So for me, it's not so much about the uniform, and there have been times when I have done sacred ritual that it does feel very important that I wear specific clothes and anoint myself with certain oils. So there are aspects that some might think are religious that I incorporate into my priestess practice. I draw ritual baths for myself that I put herbs in, and I guide clients through doing this for themselves as well. I put sacred oils on myself. I will get in the bath. I will have candles lit, and I will soak with the herbs, and usually have a meditation I do, or a prayer, or an intention for that. I do rituals on the new moon, the full moon, at the solstices and equinoxes, but almost all of the ritual I do is very much led by spirit. It's not coming from a tradition. And I think this is something that a lot of people are seeking in their life. And so I really want people to, if you take away anything from this today, it's that you can find your own practice. You can find your own meaning. There are ways to have connections with energy that don't have to come from any religious authority, that you can be your own authority. It's great to have teachers and support, and if that's something that calls to you, seek it out. It will find you. But also know that you can trust yourself. You can be guided to the things that give you meaning. And if you follow them, and this is what has led me down this path more than anything, is I just followed what felt right. I just followed what I was drawn to. I said yes to what showed up when it lit me up, when I was like, oh my goodness. And so that meant I was reading things from a very young age about different religions. I started meditating when I was 12. I would spend hours outside building grids. Essentially, that's what they were. I would make little like altars for fairies. I would spend time in the creek. I used to ask my parents if I could sleep outside all the time. And priestesses don't have to be connected to nature. That's me, again. That's me. I have a strong connection to nature, and I need to be in it on the regular. I need to be connected to the earth. I like being outside. And so I spend a lot of time doing that and giving myself that. But it's again, not always... It's not easy to have a profession that you can't just put on one line on a business card. It's not easy to do spiritual work that's not affiliated with any particular tradition, because it's harder to explain. But I think there's a need for people like me who have charted my own course to help others that feel called to do the same feel more empowered to do that. Because that's the one thing I didn't. I just had the guts and the daring to like claim this and do it. I didn't have someone sanctioning it and telling me, yeah, it's okay, like you're a priestess, call yourself that. I just did it. It felt right. And spirit kept dropping in, being like, hey, now anyone can say that, right? There's so much spiritual abuse, y'all. You gotta watch out. You gotta trust yourself. But that happens in all the organized religions as well. And so that was another thing that helped me open to this more. I was like, I'm giving so much more credence to like a priest that's been sanctioned by like going to school and by being initiated by an organized religion into a priesthood, thinking that somehow means they're inherently more spiritual and more deserving of that title. And yet the abuse is rampant, and the abuse of the power, the abuse of that that sacred space. And so even if there was a huge governing body that could grant me priestesshood, I don't think that would matter as much to me. I think there can be a need for oversight, but I think we all have to trust ourselves when it comes to having a spiritual teacher or having a spiritual facilitator. You really have to trust what feels right for you and if you feel safe with that person. I tell my clients to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Only take what resonates. I'm not here to be your spiritual authority. I'm here to help you be your own. And to find resources and community and support, because I don't think you have to be a solo practitioner and in this journey all by yourself. But there is a space, I think, for people like me who do chart our own paths, because more and more people are wanting that and seeking that out and just needing some guidance so that they can trust themselves more. So you can trust yourself. Trust yourself. And if you need resources, get resources, but follow what feels right for you. Walk into a bookstore and just see what book you're called to, right? Like, see what shows up in your life. A lot of this stuff found me. I didn't find it. I didn't like lay in my bed when I was 6 years old and say, I want to be like a witchy priestess when I grow up. No, I didn't. I didn't even know that was an option. And B, even as it started to become apparent, I tried to force myself to be a social worker. And then I tried to be a wedding photographer. Y'all, I've tried everything. I've been a vet tech. I've been a barista. I've done a lot trying to not do this. But even when I was a barista at Starbucks in my late teens, early 20s, I was like pulling tarot cards for people at the drive-thru and like having long, deep chats with customers about astrology and about them being visited by their deceased mom and like all kinds of stuff. Like I've literally, this has just been me my whole life. Any work I've tried to do that's a more normal job has always ended up with me doing Reiki, spiritual counseling, connecting people with tools like tarot and astrology. I've never not incorporated my own spiritual practice and tools in the work I've done. And it just makes more sense and feels a lot better for me to just own it and do it full time and not try to put myself in a different box. Rod says, what is your relationship to the label witch? Thank you for asking that, Rod. So my relationship to the term witch, that was another term I resisted for a really long time because for me, it kind of meant like spooky, creepy media representation of witches, vaguely, possibly satanic and or Wiccan, which I did explore. I read about, I checked out the Wiccan religion when I was like in my early teens. And I just don't resonate with organized religion. I didn't like these scripted rituals. I didn't like someone else telling me, do these things, right? Because I think a part of it is because I did already have such a strong connection on my own. But the term witch for me, I didn't see myself that way until about 6 years ago. And it was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine she was voicing her own resistance and dislike of the term witch. She's like, I'm spiritual, but I'm not a witch. But then I think about the things I do, and like, it's things that witches do. But I'm not a witch. Like, I'm not Wiccan. I'm not pagan. I don't like worship different deities. I don't even worship nature. I don't do spells. I don't do these things. And for me, it's basically what happened is a goddess dropped in one day and was like, hey, you're mine. Like, we're supposed to work together. And I didn't believe in goddesses. And I thought to work with one, you had to like be religious. And she was basically like, I want you to, claim yourself, claim your own sovereignty. She's a goddess of sovereignty. It's the Morrigan, this Celtic goddess. And it was I was having such an intense, visceral physical response to this energy dropping in. Things just started happening in my life. I would dream about a symbol and Google it the next day, and it would be her crest. Crows started just gathering around my house and like following me. Literally, like I was getting off the highway one day and a crow like walked up to my car, like on the off-ramp of a highway with like cars pushing by. And lots of things happened. Like, that's a whole other story for another day. But basically, I had to go buy a cauldron, and I had to acquire a wand, and things just started showing up. Like, people were just handing me things that were very witchy, and it became very apparent that, like, I'm a witch. Not just because I work with a goddess, but for me, a witch now, that term means a person that works with nature, the earth, and unseen energies. Some people see them, but largely unseen energies, that works with the supernatural as well as resources of the earth and connection with the earth in order to have a more balanced, healthy, happy life. So lots of people are witches by my definition. Not everyone else will define it that way, but when I started, it was very similar to like seeing myself as a priestess. It was like realizing like, oh, like witch doesn't have to mean something ugly or scary or bad. It actually means X, Y, and Z. Part of that was also doing my just researching over time women that did this work and reclaiming the word. There's something for me, I use witch because I think it's important that we change how that word is seen. I think it's a great word. I think it's a word for someone who is magical or connected to the unseen and connected to the earth, and that works with those energies and honors them and has gratitude for them and understands them, so that we're not as reliant on things that are more destructive for that balance and circle of life. Good question. Anything else, y'all, before I wrap this up? This has been a good chat, I think. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have. Let me just check in and see if there's anything else my team wants me to share. I call them my team. This is my council, the guides, the helpers that I work with. No, nothing else. We're good. So I'll close this down, but if you do have other questions about being a priestess. Oh wait, there's one more. Do you have dedicated practice space at home? I do have dedicated practice space at home. It's very small. Right now, I have a large dresser altar in my bedroom, and my new house that we're getting, I'm gonna have a whole room. And also I use outdoors because a lot of the work I do is outside. But I have to have dedicated space in my home for my own personal work, my daily rituals, and I've always done it. Like I didn't realize what I was doing, but even when I was really little, I always had like little altar and meditation space. Probably starting from about the age of 8, I would create little spaces in my room that were sacred space, and I would walk myself through rituals there, even when I was really young. So yeah, I need space. I'm excited my new place will have an even bigger backyard that's even more private, and I'll have my own room. I need a whole room, because right now, like, we call it my bedroom at home, even though my child sleeps in there most nights, my husband, like, it's my room, because it's a large part of the room, or a small part, but a significant part of the room is dedicated to my witchy priestess stuff. So, yeah. All right, Tracy says, have a good weekend. You too, Tracy. Have a good weekend. We'll wrap this up. I have a therapy appointment. That's another thing. Priestesses need good therapists. I found a really awesome one that totally helped me claim the term priestess, and helped me figure out how to and that I can do this, and this can be my life, and how to balance everything. Yeah, therapy is so great. I see a lot of interesting things. Anyone doing any kind of caregiving work, really any human needs therapy, could benefit from therapy, ongoing therapy. I'm talking about proactive therapy. Don't wait till a crisis happens. Just check in on the regular. It helps. It's good. Mental health support. I'm a fan. So I have my therapy session coming up, so I'm going to hop off. But this will be on YouTube later. Send me your questions, and I'll be back next Friday. I don't know what the topic will be yet. If you have a topic you want me to talk about, let me know. But if not, I'll just pick a topic for next Friday. Bye.